and welcome to Knit Pickers in beautiful downtown Mayfield. Today is an absolutely glorious day, just as we're heading into summer. One of those nearly perfect days. The sun is shining, it's nice and warm, but it's not too hot or sticky. Just a lovely day for enjoying the day and perhaps doing some knitting. So today I'm going to talk to you and show you how to do the Stamen Stitch. Now that's also sometimes known as the Honeycomb Stitch. It's a super easy stitch to do, doesn't require a lot of concentration, so it's perfect for a summertime project when you just want to kick back and relax. The Honeycomb Stitch can be a lovely, dense, cozy fabric, nice for a sweater, but if you knit it on a slightly larger needle or a finer yarn, you can also create something that will give you quite a lacy effect. Here, let me show you. So, here I've done a little sample swatch, and that is knit with an almost aran weight of yarn. I wish you could feel the squish on this because it's absolutely beautiful. It would make a wonderful sweater or a cozy pair of mittens. I'm knitting this on a 5mm needle. Now the other swatch that I did up is in a blue face Leicester wool, a finer wool, still on 5mm needles but finer. And you can see if I bring this up close how much lacier that is. I will pop in a little picture here to show you what that's like a little bit closer up so that you can see how lacy it is. So I think that this sample in a lacier weight would make a lovely t-shirt or tank top for the summer. It's not a terribly stretchy fabric, so it has a lot of good body to it. It's not going to stretch out of shape even if it is a lacy knit. So, want to get started? So when you're working the Stamen Stitch, or sometimes called the Honeycomb Stitch, when you're working a flat piece like this, you're going to cast on an odd number of stitches. In this case, for this little sample swatch, I cast on 15 stitches. And it's a 4-row repeat. This is your right side, and this is your wrong side. So row number 1 is just a simple knit stitch straight across. Not much to it, you don't need to think too hard about it. And even when you're just starting out your pattern, if you just cast on, your first row will be a knit row. Now I do know that when you cast on using the long tail cast on, you actually have already created one knit row as well. But I still started out with one row of knitting. I like the extra body, the extra weight it gives to the hem. The other thing that I really like about this type of stitch is it lays nice and flat. So there's no curling. If you were making a scarf or a sweater, you can see how nice and flat that lays. Now, row 1, knit across. Row 2, super simple. We knit our first stitch, and then with our yarn remaining in the back, we slip the next stitch purlwise. Knit 1 stitch, yarn in back, slip purlwise, knit a stitch, yarn in back, slip 1 purlwise. So what's really cool about this is you don't even need to move your yarn from the front to the back like you would if you were doing a knit purl. you're slipping the stitch purlwise, but you're leaving your yarn in your knit position. So you're leaving it to the back. And here we are at the last 3 stitches. I knit, I slip purlwise with the yarn in back, and I knit that last stitch. So that's row 2. Row 1 is knitting straight across. Row 2 is knit 1, slip 1 yarn in back, all the way to the end, ending with knit 1. Row 3, once again, we're just going to knit that row straight across. So I'll join you again when I've done that, and we'll start up again on row 4. So here we are back on row 4. So I knit row 1, I knit the first stitch on row 2 and slipped a stitch purlwise and carried that on across for row 2. Row 3 I just completed, and that was again knitting straight across. So here I am on the wrong side of the work, and we're at the 4th and final row of our 4-row repeat. So on row 4, again super simple. This time we are going to knit 2 stitches. And then we're going to keep our yarn in the back, slip a stitch purlwise, knit 1, slip purlwise with the yarn in the back, knit 1, slip a stitch purlwise with the yarn in the back. And it is that process of slipping the stitch that creates the slightly firmer fabric. So you would just keep on doing that all across the length of the work until you reach your last 4 stitches as I have here. So I knit, I slip a stitch purlwise with the yarn in the back, I'm down to 2 stitches, and I knit those last 2 stitches. So I finished the wrong side, the back of the work. I'd flip it over. Here's the front of my work. I would knit across again, and that is as simple as it is. That's all there is to the Stamen Stitch. It's a beautiful textured piece, nice and firm, not too stretchy, even when you're knitting it in a lighter weight fabric, which would be perfect for something a little lacier for the summertime. Now, if you wanted to create this same pretty stitch, but you wanted to knit in the round, then instead of casting on an odd number of stitches, you would cast on an even number of stitches. So you do your cast on, join your work in a circle, and place your marker, your stitch marker at the beginning of the round. Row 1, knitting in the round, is just a knit stitch all the way around. On row 2, because you're not turning your work over, you're still knitting on this side of the work. In this case then, you are going to purl 1, and then you're going to slip a stitch purlwise, but you're going to keep the yarn to the front. So when you were knitting the flat piece, you were doing a knit stitch on the wrong side, and then slipping a stitch purlwise with the yarn in the back, keeping your yarn in position for knitting. When you're working in the round on row 2, you're doing purl 1, and you're slipping your stitch purlwise with the yarn to the front. So you're keeping your yarn in purling position. So you would just complete your even number of stitches all around your round, purl 1, slip 1, purlwise with the yarn to the front. Row 3, just like when you were knitting a flat piece of the Stamen Stitch, row 3 is strictly knit stitch all the way across. And row 4 starts out with slip 1 purlwise with the yarn to the front, purl your next stitch, slip 1 purlwise with the yarn to the front, and purl 1 stitch, and you carry that on all the way around because you're always working on this side. So if you think of it, what you're doing is you are doing exactly the opposite stitch to what you were doing when you were knitting a flat piece. Simple as that to translate from knitting a flat to knitting in the round. So I hope you enjoyed today's video tutorial. Give it a try. It is such a simple and pretty stitch to do. Personally, I think it looks nice on the right side and the wrong side. So whichever side you prefer, give it a go. And in the meantime, have yourself a wonderful week. Enjoy the summer if you're watching this in the summertime. And until next time, happy knitting.